There's an old story about a wealthy businessman visiting a Caribbean village. He's going for a morning walk and he sees a fisherman tying up his boat. And in the boat are several excellent yellowfin tuna. The businessman compliments him on his catch and then asks why he doesn't go out and get more. It's still early. "I've caught enough fish for me and my family already. I'm through for the day," said the fisherman. "What do you do with the rest of your day?" asked the businessman. "I sleep late, fish for a while, play with my children, take a siesta, and spend time with my wife. In the evening, I go into the village to visit my friends, have a few drinks, play the guitar, and sing a few songs. I have a full life." The businessman tells him, "I have an MBA from Harvard, and I can help you. You should spend more time on the water fishing, then you can sell extra fish, make more money, and buy a bigger boat." "Why would I want to do that?" "Well, with the extra money from the bigger boat, you can buy 2 or 3 boats and eventually hire more people to operate a fleet of fishing trawlers. Instead of selling your fish to a middleman, you can negotiate directly with the processing plants. Soon, you'd be able to open your own plant. Then you could leave this little village for Mexico City and eventually New York. From there, you could operate the whole enterprise, sell stock in the company, and make millions." Again, the fisherman asked, "Why would I want to do that?" The businessman sighed, "Because then you'd be rich like me. You could retire on the coast, sleep late, do some fishing, play with your grandkids, take a siesta, and spend time with your wife. In the evenings, you could go out drinking and singing with your friends. You'd be free to do whatever you want, and you can treasure life." The fisherman looked around. He spread his hands out like a game show host. He said, "You mean like this?" I wish that I could be as content as the fisherman in this story. However, the world I inhabit, the world we inhabit, does not present as being quite as simple. It is overlaid for many of us with the intentions of the MBA in the story. Yet we can have more and enjoy our lives more fully now and simultaneously feel as content and enriched as the fisherman. 2 years ago, I set out to find that sense of equanimity as I, along with Cantor Bortnick, embarked on an incredible journey through the clergy leadership program of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. Throughout this 18-month program, we explored Jewish spirituality through prayer, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, text study, and more. We engaged in each of these areas during intensive retreats with the guidance of exceptional teachers, through Chavruta-style learning with a colleague that continued on a weekly basis between the retreats. This process provided new yet ancient tools with which to confront the world in which we live. I learned to experience the fullness of this life with all its imperfections and brokenness, and to reorient the way I occupy it. We can each become more mindful of God's presence in all our actions and through all our actions. Each of us can receive the blessings, the wholeness that can be ours when we are open to the fullness of the world that surrounds us. Some of you experienced a taste of the fruits of this journey in the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah. During the month of Elul, we shared various concepts of wholeness in Jewish tradition through Jewish mindfulness and meditation practices we offered via text or email each week. Each week focused on a different aspect of our being, the body, soul, and mind, and ultimately all need to be aligned for us to fully reach shleimut, wholeness. The root of that word, shleimut, is the same as that of shalom, the idea of true peace being when all those aspects of ourselves are aligned and in balance. And I don't know about you, but it always seems as though once I achieve balance in one area, another falls into chaos. That is what happens when we focus all our energy on what is missing, what is lacking in our lives, rather than focusing on the fullness and bringing an awareness of that fullness into those areas where we fall short. It's an appropriate day, but that's not till 8:37. We're not doing the 7-inning stretch yet. Our sages teach that even when we make peace with each other through the 10 days of Teshuvah, if we have not made peace with ourselves, we will not be able to achieve true Teshuvah. Making peace with ourselves means caring for ourselves emotionally as well as physically. It means focusing on the fullness, the blessings that exist in our daily lives, rather than thinking, as we naturally do on Yom Kippur, about the ways in which we are lacking. It is opening our eyes so that we see through a lens of blessing, rather than looking only at what is lacking. We are taught that Yom Kippur, the most solemn and sacred of days, is a day for turning, intention setting, and moving forward. It is a reawakening for each of us. I spent 18 months immersed in this process, but in reality, we all have access. Our tradition presents these concepts as fundamental to Judaism. It is built into our Jewish texts and rituals. This fall, we are offering a new class through which we will learn together how to find wholeness in Jewish living. It begins Monday, October 21st, with a preview during Sukkot on Monday, October 14th. Join us and discover ways that Judaism can help you live a balanced and richer life. And if you missed the Elul meditations, don't worry, you can still access them in the High Holiday section of our website, and we will be sharing additional mindfulness meditations throughout the year as well. The framework of Judaism gives us opportunities on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and throughout the year to create and cultivate our own mindfulness practice. Mindfulness practice helps us intentionally see and experience the blessings of our lives, the blessings that exist in our bodies, our souls, and our minds. Maimonides, a great Jewish scholar and physician of the 12th century, interpreted this in his seminal code of Jewish law, the Mishnah Torah. He wrote, "Since maintaining a healthy and sound body is among the ways of God, for one cannot understand or have knowledge of the Creator if one is ill. Therefore, one must avoid that which harms the body and accustom oneself to that which is helpful and helps the body become stronger. Jews are thus required to keep ourselves physically healthy." When we awaken each morning, we can pause for a moment of gratitude, give thanks that we are alive, that there is breath in our lungs, and that our bodies are functioning, even on the days they may not be functioning quite to the extent we want them to. There are prayers and meditations that provide language each of us can use, or we can create our own ritual through which we express gratitude to God for the blessing of simply existing, breathing in and breathing out. It is not something for us to pursue on this one day or for one brief period of time, just like God did not speak to us at that one moment in the desert. The words we read just moments ago, Parshat Nitzavim, tells us that yes, God was speaking to those gathered together at Sinai at that moment, on that day, and also that God is speaking to those of us gathered together here at this moment, on this day. It is an eternal moment we share. In fact, it's actually possible for each of us to constantly experience that moment. We can do that by developing a practice, setting an intention, being open and aware to what you are doing. And start with something simple, like brushing your teeth or drinking your morning coffee. Take the time to do an ordinary, mundane activity mindfully. Our 7th graders at the Binneman Center tried this with me a few weeks ago with a chocolate meditation. Each of them was given a Hershey Kiss and asked not to touch it. Pure torture on a Sunday morning. And I realized that even the description may be pure torture on Yom Kippur morning as well. I instructed each of them to hold it on the palm of your hand and smell it through the wrapper. Now slowly unwrap the chocolate, look at it, let the aroma sweep over you. Pop it in your mouth, but don't chew it, don't swallow it, just let it melt on your tongue. Some of them actually did. Notice the different flavors. If your mind wanders, bring it back gently to the chocolate, and once it has melted, swallow what is left. The results were amazing. They said the chocolate actually tasted sweeter. Can you imagine what our lives might feel like, what our world might be like if we were all to connect with one another with such openness and intention? We can do that without meditating, by the way. That is what our brachot, our blessings, are intended to provide before and after meals, or really before any action. Simple moments to express gratitude and simultaneously to pause so that we might enter into the next moment in action with intentionality. Mindfulness practice cultivates our ability to meet whatever is happening in our lives with an open mind and a courageous open heart. Thich Nhat Hanh described meditation as being more like a mist than walking into the ocean or a swimming pool. We don't wake up all at once. Teshuvah is exactly like that. It is the art of starting again, of rebuilding. We return each year. And we can do that each and every day. We can return to our intention, our awareness, to kindness. And when we do, our internal sanctuary becomes stronger. Each one of us carries a spark of divine light within us, the light of awareness, and it is our responsibility to keep the light aflame, even when the world creeps in and threatens to diminish that light. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev taught, when a person's soul is in balance, she realizes that she is far from God. At the very same moment, however, she knows that she is close to God. We all tremble with ineffable reverence when we think of the Almighty as way, way above and beyond. But when we feel in our deepest being that God is close to us, right next to us, our profound love of God comes into our hearts. Both awe and love are the polarities that keep our souls in balance. Balance can be challenging to achieve in a world that is filled with far too much instability, a world that all too often feels like it is on the brink of devolving into complete chaos, a world that at times seems to be lacking in awe and love, a world in which the way a message is delivered can draw away from the opportunity for open, honest dialogue. We often focus on the tone of the message rather than the issue itself. We become sidetracked and even paralyzed from moving forward and effecting the change our world needs in order to become whole. Reform Judaism took on the moniker of prophetic Judaism in order that we might be inspired by the prophets to act, to contribute to Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world. As Jews, we have an obligation to come together in order that we might effect change in the world around us. And when we become grounded and rooted through our sense of fullness and blessing, then we possess the desire to make this world a better place. It is a Jewish tradition that harkens back to the sages of the Talmud, who recorded not only the words of the winning argument, but recorded that which would not be followed, out of a sense of respect and recognition that that decision, too, was born from learning and a love of the people Israel. We are all aware that the tone of discourse has not been quite as respectful of late in our country, detracting from the issues and our ability to work together for the betterment of the whole. Many of you have expressed to me that you feel a sense of helplessness, a sense of powerlessness, frustration. Perhaps the best strategy for dealing with fear is to take action. These days of teshuvah, of turning, are days on which we turn, as Rabbi Fischel shared with us 10 days ago, from fear to awe, from the overwhelming din of the world around us to the simple silence of our inner hearts. And waiting there for each of us is God's response, if only we have the courage to face it and act on it. It will take courage for us to face the world in this new year. It will take strength, we know, in the face of all that threatens the fragile balance of our world, the ravaging consequences of climate change, the growing tide of anti-Semitism and racism, the seemingly ceaseless scourge of gun violence. It can be overwhelming to consider all of it together. As I reflect on what I need to do to find balance in my own life, I know that I won't feel whole until I act, for there is still so much in need of repair. 5 years ago, I stood before you and spoke about Jewish views on the sanctity of life and the threat gun violence poses against our lives. I shared that a world plagued by gun violence is not the world I want my nor any of our children to inherit, and I vowed that I would not stand idly by. And that was before the shootings at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando or the Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas, before Parkland, Pittsburgh, and Poway, before Dayton, and the countless shootings before, after, and in between, not to mention those down the street in neighborhoods of our own city that don't receive the media attention for what is practically a daily occurrence? How many additional lives have been lost? Since that sermon, we held a Shabbat for Our Lives service in this very sanctuary, the Friday night before the March for Our Lives. So many of us marched in support of our youth who acted on behalf of their own future. Clearly, we must do more. We hope that you will join us on October 25th for Show Up for Shabbat, on the one-year anniversary of those killed at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, and that you will join us as we engage in additional efforts to prevent gun violence. For we risk our own humanity in the process of remaining silent or not acting about any of the myriad fears that are manifestations of the shards of our broken world. We must do more than pray and speak. We must take action as a community. Each of us is obligated to recognize our responsibility for the brokenness of our world. We may not always see or experience that brokenness in our daily lives, our personal worlds, our neighborhoods, or our congregation. We may even disagree among ourselves about how to achieve the change that is needed, but Judaism directs us that we must do something. In our Mishkan Tefillah prayer book we use every Shabbat, we find the words, "Pray as if everything depended on God, act as if everything depended on you." If everything depends on us, then we must let go of the divisions that paralyze us and prevent us from making progress. We must be able to rally around the ultimate truth we share. Talmud exhorts us in Mishnah Sanhedrin, "He who takes one life, it is as though he has destroyed the entire world. And he who saves one life, it is as though he has saved the entire world." To me, that is the most basic definition of awe, an awareness and appreciation of the beauty and infinite value of each human life. One of the great teachers of the Reform movement, Rabbi Richard Levy, Zichrono Livracha, who died this past year, reflected on what happens when we become so entrenched in taking sides that we lose sight of the whole, and as a result, lose sight of God's presence in the midst of our dialogue. He wrote, "Once we learned one truth, and it was cherished or discarded, but it was one. Now we are told that the world can be perceived by many truths. Now in the reality all of us encounter, some find lessons that others deny. Once we learned one kind of life and one reality. It too we either adopted or scorned. But right was always right and wrong was always wrong. And now we are told that there are many right, that what is wrong may well be wrong for you, but right for me. Yet we sense that some acts must be wrong for everyone, and that beyond the many half-truths is a single truth all of us may one day grasp. That clear way, that single truth, is what we seek in coming here, to join our people who saw the eternal one when others saw only the temporal now. Rabbi Levy suggests that the single truth can be found in our Jewish belief, in pursuing what our Jewish traditions and teachings exhort us to do, to see the eternal, to follow God's path. May each of us follow God's path as it leads us to repair what is broken in ourselves and what is broken in our world. May it lead to openness and awareness. May it lead to strength and compassion. And ultimately, may it lead us to balance. And there, may each one of us find wholeness, shleimut. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May that be God's will.